Hey, fellow traveler. Welcome to the Third Eye Awakening podcast, a show where we talk all about spiritual and psychic awakening, magic, the shift from 3D to 5D, star seeds, ascension, multiple timelines, multiple dimensions, the universe, the multiverse, the Akashic records, all the good things. I am your host, Amy Belair, and I'm so glad to have you here with me today. Okay, let's do this. Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome to another episode of Third Eye Awakening. Today is a solo episode, and it's me sharing a synthesis of so many downloads and transmissions that I have received over the past probably 2 months in the form of like my whole evolved worldview. I receive these transmissions often in the middle of the night. But sometimes I receive them during one-to-one sessions with people. So those who booked in for the light language activation sessions, also some Akashic sessions, and with my private clients. And I'm a little bit nervous about sharing this because the truth is that I just don't have all the answers. Like I just don't. And I don't think anybody expects me to, but my own perfectionist self feels like I should have the whole picture fleshed out completely and, packaged up nicely, digestibly wrapped in a beautiful red bow for everyone. But I don't feel like that's the nature of this reality, that we can't actually see it all and know it all, or at least I can't. Anyway, but I see a lot of it. And I know my Dharma, a big part of my mission in this life is to share what I receive for the purposes of activating others and expanding their perspectives. So I trust that you will all be activated, all of you who listen to this, in the direction that you are supposed to go. I am absolutely not trying to sell you on my worldview as if it is a fact. This is me assembling like puzzle pieces of information. So basically, I feel like I'm putting together an umpteen billion infinite piece puzzle. And I keep getting more and more pieces, and I can see like big parts of the picture, but the whole puzzle isn't together yet. So I am not asking you to supplant your own worldviews in favor of mine. Just take what resonates with you and run with it. And anything that doesn't resonate, just let it go. Yeah. Okay. And then also, you might hear me stumbling because there's a lot of, it's like, how do I explain this without it being like 5 hours long? There's a lot of sort of prerequisite understanding that I have that like, is this necessary? Do I have to go into this? So, I might go down some tangents, but I'll always try to bring it back for you all. Okay. Enough delaying, Amy. Get on to it. So, as I've said before, I believe that we are in a holographic dream projection. What I mean by that is I believe that we are in the dream of a great dreaming mind, and that this reality is holographic insofar as every particle isn't the right word, but like every sub unit, that's not the right word either. Every aspect of the hologram contains all the information of the entire hologram. That's the best way that I can put it. And that it is constantly shifting, and within the hologram, there is an illusion of 3D that is created. I actually took 2 courses in university studying the physics of holography. So I'm taking from there. I'm definitely not an expert. I'm not a scientist. I'm never going to pretend that I am, but I do understand like the concepts behind physics. And so with a hologram, basically it's a 2-dimensional plane, but on it, like it's a flat plane, like a flat surface, and the illusion of a 3D form is created by the way that light waves interfere with each other. And that's a simple, like Earth created hologram. This is an intelligent, organic, living hologram. And it responds to many factors. But the chief factors that it responds to and renders itself around are human consciousness as well as creator consciousness. I believe that this is a holographic dream projection. It is It is the creation of a great dreaming mind. It has the illusion of being a physical world. And yet it is not actually physical. It's all taking place within a dream. And each subunit of the dream contains all of the information of the dream. Essentially, I believe that this is a simulation, but not a computer simulation. It's more of a created, yeah, it's a mind created simulation, but it has rules. It has like mathematical coding. It's based on geometries that I've been seeing. So everything is comprised of tiny, perfect geometries, energetic geometries. It's a little bit like string theory, but rather than being just vibrating strings, I see them as vibrating geometry, energetic geometric templates, which then flesh themselves out to become, what the world that we interact with through our five senses. And we are the ones through our five senses that decode all this information. So we are the ones that are essentially like rendering it, and we are applying the textures, so to speak. Like if you're going on the illusion, or sorry, the analogy of like 3D computer rendering, like 3D computer design. Like say you're creating a space, like you're using AutoCAD or something like that, which is probably totally outdated software. I don't know. It's been a long time since I was in art school. But yeah, like a software program like AutoCAD, and you're creating an interior, like you're an interior design student and you want to create a mock-up of an interior. When you're first creating the interior, it's like all just lines and forms. It's like a blueprint. And then you apply the textures, and that's what makes it look like, something. That's what distinguishes like a couch from a wall and a window from a floor. You know what I mean? So, but we are the ones that apply the textures as we decode this information through our five physical senses, through our central nervous system. So this is all a very, 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 very advanced yet organic simulation. And I believe that Gaia is the eighth dimensional oversoul consciousness that this dream belongs to, that this, like, she is the simulation. She is the simulation. And so what I mean by that is that above the eighth dimensional level, there are beings that are creator beings. And she is one of the creator beings. And she is like, the way I see it is like she is on a ship. I definitely feel like she's female. I don't know what kind of being she is. To me, the way she shows herself in that form is like, it's totally symbolic. It's like the Empress from Neverending Story, like a young female, like a girl child kind of, but like, a 12-year-old or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not saying that's what she actually is. That's just how my mind understands her as I tune into her consciousness. So at a certain level, she is a separate being, and she is on a ship. And there's like on the ship, there is this space that you can go into, and you enter into like a simulation, and you enter at various different vantage points, various different perspectives. And it's like she is in the simulation, and she is this realm. She is the consciousness that animates this realm. And I don't want to confuse anyone or trigger anyone. I'm not saying that Gaia is God. There is a source that is so much higher than all of this. I'm just saying that I believe there is a consciousness we know of as Gaia that is infusing this whole entire realm, and this is her dream. And we are plugged into her dream. In a sense, as long as we're here, we are her, because we're not, like, our avatars are not separate from her energy. And I believe that she has like ascended to a new version of this simulated dream, and we are just catching up with her. So I believe, as I've said before, I said this in 5D Light Bridge and in Transcend, that I believe that her ascension has already happened. The ascension is inevitable. There's no way it's not going to happen. Like there's no way. And all the insanity that we're seeing in the circus show of it's like a rotating like mirror funhouse of like circus insanity in the external narrative, but all of those things are there to trigger us into waking up. All of the things that trigger us, all of them they have so much less to do with anything that we should be afraid of and so much more to do with like, oh, this simulation is like winding down and we need to wake up so that we can move on. We can move on to the new version of the simulation, which, in new age terms would be new earth. I don't believe it's a separate location. I don't believe that we have to like fly on spaceships to get there. I could be wrong. Whatever, doesn't matter. That's just where I'm at with it right now. So I have these memories. When I say memories, I mean that they're very vague, but they're there and they become clearer as I talk about them, especially as I talk about it with others who also have these memories. Because believe it or not, it's not just me. I have these memories of being part of the group that created this simulation. What it feels like is to me, we didn't create, let me see. Oh man, it's really hard to sort of dial in and explain all of this. What I see is that, as I said, when we get into the higher dimensions above the eighth dimension, it's like everybody is a creator being. We have mastered incarnations in the lower dimensions, and our soul consciousness, it's like, yeah, we're at a level of mastery where physical incarnations, or not even, and not physical, that's the ridiculous thing. English sucks. Where incarnations into individual lives within a realm at a like a certain souls have mastered that. They're who we would call ascended masters or ascended ones. I call them ascended ones. They've mastered that. They've done it. When they get in there, it doesn't take long for them to remember how this whole thing works. Long being a relative term, of course, because it can take you 80 years. But if you figure out within a lifetime, like, oh yeah, this is how this works, then you are probably like the dripped down consciousness of an ascended master consciousness. The ninth dimension and above, I see as creator beings. I see the angelic realm as being like one of the like primary locations of creation. But of course, I mean, they all are. P.S. If you want like all of this in greater depth, I have this course called Who the Fuck Am I? And I go into like all of these levels, all of these layers. And, I talk about them for like an hour each. So it's pretty in depth. But the angelic realm, I see as being this beautiful, high dimensional, like 10th, 11th, 12th dimensional realm, wherein consciousness differentiates slightly into colors and like musical notes. But there is like consciousness and individuation. It's like they arrange themselves in different patterns that produce almost feels like bubbles. And entire universes exist in those bubbles, or like the bubbles are like the raw material of a simulation. They create, this might sound crazy, but it almost feels like an ovary releasing an egg. Like there's something about it that's like spherical and so beautiful, and it's fertile. It has the raw materials for a whole entire, it's bigger than a planet. It feels like a whole universe to exist, or maybe a whole galaxy. I don't know. I mean, a lot of this, like the terms that I'm using, like galaxy and universe, like these are kind of hijacked terms that are given to us by NASA, which is full of shit, so it's really hard to describe these concepts and feel like I'm not betraying them and corrupting them myself as I use these words, but it's kind of all we have for context. So at the level of the angelic realm, I see like the raw materials of a whole universe being created. And then there are these beings that look like mantis beings that kind of like take those bubbles. Also, dragons fall in there somewhere. I think dragons are like 10th, 11th, 10th, 11th, 12th dimensional energies as well. I see them like as guardians, but also they provide like that heat element. It's like they warm the bubble up or the egg up enough that it starts the no, it's like that all of the elements within it start to move. This probably sounds crazy to a bunch of you. Anyway, I'm just gonna keep going. Welcome to my inner world and my life. This is literally what I think about all the time. I'm not even joking. Okay, so there are these universes. Angels sort of like create the initial bubble. Dragons kind of like heat it up and guard it and protect it and like add another element. I don't think dragons are like sperm, you know, but in a way, they sort of infuse it with an element of heat that allows all of that raw material to start moving and interacting with each other. And then I see these mantis beings, which sort of then take that active, coalescing mass of energy and consciousness, and they sort of like, I don't know how to put it. Like, I wish you could see me. I'm moving my hands and my fingers in this sort of like, I don't know, it's probably a witchy way. I don't identify with being a witch at all, but it's like this witchy kind of like, ooh, like I'm stirring my fingers over the cauldron or something. And I'm like moving energy. And I feel like they wield that. I'll call it a primordial soup, but that's not really accurate, but whatever. That primordial soup within the bubble. They move it and direct it so that it's like they're directing the currents of the energy. They're sort of setting those currents in motion. I think that these are universes and the mantids are creating like the different galaxies and the different sort of like star clusters within the galaxies. And they are bringing some like more like form, I guess. Some more order would be a better way of putting it to that, that primordial soup of consciousness and energy swirling around. And then it falls down into the like, I guess like kind of I see these as being ninth dimensional beings. Oh my God, there's so many things I could talk about. Holy shit. I was gonna go into the Arcturians, but I'm not gonna bother because I'm gonna talk about that in Galactic Gateway. But at the level of like ninth dimensional beings as I understand them, it's like at that point, what we do, and I say we because I really believe that I am one of them. This is the part where I have memories. Okay. I remember it's like we went into one of these universes to explore it. And when I say we went into it, it reminds me a lot of the scenes with the pensieve, the pensieve, whatever, in Harry Potter. You know, when there's that thing in Dumbledore's office and they pour a memory into it and then they just like kind of put their face in it and they tumble down into the memory. It's kind of like that. That's what I mean. Like we almost like we're peering into this bubble, this universe. It also reminds me of Men in Black when they were like the galaxy is on Orion's belt and it's just this marble. And then like these bigger beings are playing marbles with it. Like totally 100%. So we peer into this marble, this bubble, and it's alive, it's moving. There's life in there and we peer into it and we can like peer into it in such a way that like it's like we're putting our face into it and we can be like, whoa, what's going on? And we find so many things and we create so many realms and worlds. And I have memories about finding this little world and being like, oh, this one's really nice. And it was sort of just the raw materials of this world that existed at that time. But we kind of played with it and expanded it and filled it with certain features like volcanoes and mountains and dynamic features and it's like we coded it and programmed it, sort of like we set dynamic features in motion is a better way of putting it. And then we left and went and had lunch or something. I don't know how long we were gone for. But when we came back, it had progressed to include some bipedal creatures that were, the let's say primitive humans, but I don't mean like primitive is just a problematic word. Like there were these creatures that evolved and became bipedal and were using tools and had a certain level of self-awareness that made them suitable avatars for our incarnation, should we choose to incarnate. But they required modification. And so that's where we spliced our genes with their genes. It's like I don't even know how it happened. I don't think it directly first happened as like us coming in because we were so much bigger. Like, I don't see how we could have come in and just like mated with them. I honestly have no idea. I think there was some other way that it happened at first that we sort of came in and we infused. That's a better way. That's a better way of putting it than splice. We infused our genetics with their genetics, which allowed us to be able to, our consciousness to be able to enter them as avatars without absolutely frying the fuck out of their circuits, out of their circuitry. So, okay. So I had these memories. And I remember that we didn't initially incarnate as them. We more like we modified them and then we kind of did our thing again. We went on another lunch break or whatever and left to like just see what would happen. And we would come back and check it out. And we would sort of like enter ourselves into that universe. And like I have no idea, okay, that when I'm describing all of this, it's like the laws of physics that we understand on our earth do not apply at that level of creation. So when I say we entered into that universe, like I literally do not know how we entered into that universe. I have no idea. But we entered into the universe and we would come visit Earth as star beings. We wouldn't disguise ourselves. We just show up as star beings. And the humans thought that we were gods, and we're not gods. We were not gods. We were just higher dimensional creator beings. And we didn't like, yeah, we created them, but we can't really take credit for them. I was like humans, like I'm not a human. I am a human, okay? We created humans, but we couldn't take credit for creating humans because as you heard, there were all these other levels of consciousness that took part in this creation process. It's more like a collected work of art. It's like if you imagine the angelics, it's like they poured the initial background of a painting. They poured beautiful, very light colors onto the canvas. And then the dragons came and like applied, I don't know, heat, let's just say, that allowed those colors to swirl and mix together in a different direction. And then the mantid beings took it next and they deliberately with paintbrushes like moved the paint in certain clusters and clumps and creating form that was more ordered. And then it got passed to us and we took a look at what already existed and we decided what we wanted to create within what was already in existence. I hope that tracks. Anyway, so we would go have our lunch breaks or do whatever we were doing. We were probably creating other worlds too. I have no idea. That part I can't remember. We would go do our thing and we would come back and we would see like what humans had created. And sometimes we would come down as star beings and we would be like, here, have you heard of fire? Try this. Or have you heard of agriculture? Try this. We would offer different wisdom, different tools, different technologies. And yet we would also kind of sometimes be dicks, I'm not going to lie. And we would like, I was talking with my friend Colleen and my friend Brandon of Expanding Reality podcast. And I described it as like, we would like slug the ant hill. Like we would look at the ants, like in this analogy, I'm saying humans were the ants. We would look at them from way above being way huger. And we would just just for fun, kind of. We would flood the anthill. I'm not saying that's what caused the Great Flood. I'm just saying like that was kind of the energy we brought sometimes. And then like we would kind of like laugh because it's really not a big deal. Like the consciousness on in Gaia's simulation, I'm just realizing I have to backtrack a little bit. The consciousness in Gaia's simulation, meaning the humans and the other forms of life, were like they were it's not a big deal from that level. It's not a big deal. But we would kind of be dicks and we would flood the anthill. And then sometimes we would be cool and we would bring, things toward their advancement. And sometimes we would bring things that they were not ready for. They didn't understand how to use them properly. The same way that I cannot give Kieran and William, my two children. William's, by the time you hear this, he'll be 1 year old. Oh my God. And Kieran is 4. I can't give them lighters and matches. I can't give them knives. You know what I mean? Because they're not prepared. Not because they're not worthy and they're inferior to me, but just at the point of development that they're at, they can't use it safely. So sometimes we would kind of like make mistakes and it would cause some devastation and we would have to sort of like reset humanity. Like it was easier to just be like, well, okay, oops, wipe them all out, start again. And I'm sure from the perspective of humanity, it probably felt very much like assholes, you know? But from our perspective, it's like, it's really not a big deal. So back to Gaia, this is where I have to backtrack. So when I say that this is her dream, it's like this girl child, as she presents herself to me, she is on a ship as a higher dimensional being, probably a ninth or 10th dimensional being. I don't know. And she is like in a room where she has a VR headset on, a very dense or heavy place. Certainly, death was still a thing. Death is not a bad thing. Death is what allows new growth to happen. If there was no death at all, then there would be a point where there's no room for new growth. So death would happen, injury would happen, but for the most part, it was a very beautiful and idyllic sort of realm. And kind of what I see is that from those of us that like created humanity, like came in and did the genetic infusing, the star beings from humanity's perspective, we were all one cohesive group. And it doesn't even feel like a big group, honestly. It feels like maybe 5 or 6 of us. It's not a lot of us. We were all one cohesive group. And then it's like one member of the group really just felt like the desire to prune and control the evolution of humanity and sort of like, I don't know how to put it because I really don't feel like it's evil at that level. From our perspective on Earth, we've come to view it as evil. But it actually feels like they wanted to keep it as like a controlled playground. And I mean it's a little bit evil, a little bit overlordy because they could incarnate into the same bloodlines over and over and like hoard wealth. And it's like a game. It's like really is like a virtual reality game. That's what we essentially created. Like Gaia was doing her thing. And then we saw oh, there are these avatars here. Cool. And we wanted to come in and play. And she was like, yeah, sure, why not? That'll make it even more fun. But she's just busy being an entire planet, air quotes, an entire realm. And then so then this group that I remember being part of, one section of the group wanted to, let's just pretend it was 6 of us. So 3 of us wanted to be like, we were like, let's just, keep control of this realm. Let's make sure that humanity can't ascend. Let's keep the population under control. Like we're just going to keep them capped and we're going to go in and incarnate into these avatars, but we're going to keep incarnating into like the same bloodlines and the same, we're really going to pick and choose where we incarnate so that we can kind of like, we can amass wealth and we can hoard wealth and we could be like little overlords within this tiny, minuscule, totally ultimately inconsequential game. And then the other half of the group, the other 3 of us, we were like, no, that's boring. There's no fun in that. Like and I'm not going to pretend that like we were all benevolent because I feel like we all participated in that to an extent where we just had fun coming in and being like, haha, we're the star beings and we're the overlords. And, but then there was a point where, yeah, the half of the group that I identify with was like, I don't know, that's boring. And like, we've already done it. And like, who cares? Because this game isn't even real. So like, why? What's the point of that? What's the point of that? And we thought it would be way more fun to see, basically to let humanity ascend in to become like ascended masters in their own right, and to be able to master the incarnation experience and become creator beings of their own, and sort of like teach them, show them how to be creator beings and be stewards of like creation energy and creation power. And so then there was like a division, like there was a break off in the two factions. And the faction that wanted to control humanity and kind of overlord it, I associate with the being known as Enlil. And the faction that I identify with that was like, but let's see what can happen. Like, how high can humans climb? What can occur here? I associate with the being known as Enki. So then what I understand, and this is all just Earth, by the way, there's so many things happening elsewhere outside of the realm of Earth. So many things, but that will make this conversation way too long. So then, I'm kind of getting distracted by my own tangent. So I feel like somewhere along the line, the simulation got hijacked in a way that was not cool for Gaia. And again, when I pan up into those higher memories of being one of the like the higher dimensional creator beings, this is all of absolutely negligible consequence. It's a valuable experience. It was like this beautiful paradisical like game realm where we could come and like be in human avatars, or we could become as our star being selves, and we could play in the beauty and the bounty and the abundance of this realm, and like gain new perspective and try new things and kind of have adventures. And like, it was a lot of fun, but it was valuable for the data that we collected, the information, the way that we grew and expanded in our consciousness in doing so. But it also was of no consequence at that level, because there are so many aspects to this multiverse that like this is but one tiny, tiny corner that's like infinitely small when you pan out and look at it from that perspective. But I believe that somewhere along the line, the simulation got hijacked, and it was hijacked in a way that, like, I believe it was probably from the Enlil group. I don't know. I've heard other people sort of describe it as like infiltrators from the Draco constellation and like reptilians and things like that. And maybe they let some of those in. I don't know. I honestly don't know that stuff. Those are the things I tend to find out when people come for readings with me. Some people just carry those memories in their Akashic field, and then I see them and I'm like, oh, that's what happened. But I do feel like something got hijacked, and it's like there's a lot of corruption and negativity, density. And I think that's where it lowered into the 3D and 4D realm. And this part I don't personally remember, but I have a friend who remembers being part of a collective that used the moon to create an energy net over top of Earth to hold souls in here, to hold consciousness in here. I don't personally remember that myself, so I don't want to say that I did. I do remember it, but I do believe, like, I've seen the net. I see it. I see it. There is a frequency net that holds consciousness in here. And so for a lot of us, when we die, we don't get to leave the simulation anymore, not completely. But when I say that, oh my God, there's so much information. When I say that, I also don't want anybody to feel threatened, because ultimately we are the drip down consciousness of like higher dimensional consciousness, okay, which means that like the soul that animates us, we have only brought like 0.5% or maybe 0.1% or 0.001% of that soul consciousness into this life with us. So the majority of ourselves is still on the outside of the simulation. But I do see a net, I do feel a net, and I feel a lot of souls are held in a lower frequency of density and unconsciousness within this dream projection, that when they die, they just reincarnate back into another human avatar. They don't get to go back outside of the simulation. And I understand that the reason for this is to like contain the density, contain there is some kind of like negativity. And again, I don't even want to use that word because it's not exactly the right word. I also don't want to use the word evil because that's not really the right word. That just plays into fear, and fear holds us into density. There's some element that is working against the expansion evolution of consciousness. I guess that's the best way I can put it. And this net has been created to contain it. And I also tuned into this actually some weeks ago, maybe like 12 weeks ago, and I felt it as like almost a tulpa. And it's a neediness. It's like, yeah, it's like a need, almost like a vampiric, desperate need. And it's like a thought form of its own. And I think that's what we are trapping. This like this need that just like it's never satiated. So it always wants to like pull energy out of everything. And that is being contained in this simulation. And it hurt Gaia for a long time. And eventually, so okay, so then, oh my God, I just feel like I'm all over the map. If you're still with me, thank you. So Gaia was sort of stuck in here with that energy, and it was painful. Like, it was not an enjoyable part of her holographic dream projection for herself. This is where we can see things like the Industrial Revolution and like dredging and mining and like, oil drilling and like that energy of like taking without considering like her as a being. And, it really feels like kind of like raping the earth for her energy and her resources. And so that was a very painful part of the dream projection for her. And she was like, this is bogus. Like, I don't want to be here for this. And so she did her part of the work that she needed to do in order to ascend her consciousness into the higher realms again. But she could not really actually leave as long as there was all that like dense energy playing out through the avatars here on Earth, the human avatars. So a whole bunch of us, a lot of us, decided to come in. And this is where I'm talking about star seeds, or, if you're a Dolores Cannon person, this would be, I think, what she refers to as the three waves of volunteers: star seeds, galactics. But I also feel, and I have so many people coming into my world right now who have an angelic frequency, but also an ascended frequency. And we volunteered to come in knowing that we would be kind of like, air quotes, trapped, and would have the potential to get sort of like, sucked into the illusion. But we came in to bring in more consciousness, more of that high frequency consciousness, so that she could ascend, kind of in a sense that like we would break the magnetic pull of that lower density. It, like like something was pulling her down, and we would come and be able to break what was pulling her down so that she could just ascend up into a higher, like a new simulation. I don't know if I'm describing this properly. I think some of you will understand, but if you don't understand, don't worry about it. Like, there are parts of me that still struggle to understand, even though these words are literally coming out of my mouth. So we came to help Gaia, and we came to help humanity. And ultimately what it comes down to, and why I really wanted to share this worldview that I now have, is that many of us are here to liberate consciousness. That's really what it comes down to. We are here to liberate consciousness that went into this realm and then couldn't leave. And it kind of looks to me like we are dissolving the netting and the webbing that was cast around this realm so that consciousness can leave. But we're not just like opening holes in the net and letting everything out. We are also kind of creating like a geometric template that is recoding the simulation so that the denser consciousness doesn't, it's almost like it has to pass through an energetic barrier that we create that causes it to become like cleansed and purified. And I don't even, honestly, I don't even like using those words on the podcast because they sound very religious. And I don't like that. I don't mean any of this in a judgment way. I just mean that, like, if I think about all the angelic, the humans who have angelic souls that I've met over the last year, like I can tune into your energy and I feel that you create a force field. It's almost like you stand at the gates of these holes we're creating in the netting, and nothing can pass through those holes. No consciousness can get out of here without passing through your force field first. And your force field kind of like, yeah, it cleanses and purifies that consciousness. But what I mean by that is it wakes it up and it liberates it from the distortion of the illusions that we have been trapped in here on earth. There's so much more. This is like, I'm not kidding. This is all I think about all the time, is like accessing those memories and understanding what's going on here. Of course, there are so many other pieces to it. There's like, well, where do the Arcturians come in? Where do the Lyrians come in? Where do the Pleiadians come in? And how do I know if I'm an angelic soul? What dragons? What? Like, I mean, then there's all the archetypes. Like, there's so much more to talk about, but I don't want this to be a 5-hour podcast episode. So I think I'm going to leave it here. And I'm going to offer an invitation that, okay, so what I believe, I feel like my work is getting less and less general and more specific. Like I have really specific people to work with, really specific things to do. And so much of it is like kind of decoding and reading these histories, I guess, would be a way of putting it. It does feel like going deeper into the records and like pulling out more information and activating people into their mission. So you've heard me talk before about the call and 1212 and my light language activation sessions. And what I want you to know, I haven't even talked about creation codes yet, really, to the broader public, but what I want you to know is that I have a series of offers right now. And they are for people who, as you listen to this, even if not all of it resonates with you, very specific pieces resonate with you. And you're like, yeah, I remember that too. Or, oh, I don't remember it, but this totally makes sense to me. Or like on a gut level, I know that that she's onto something or whatever. And you know that you're here to be, you are one of the star beings, or you are one of the angelics. You're one of the ones that came here to transition us out of this old simulation and into the next simulation, into the next holographic dream projection. You are one of the ones who exists on a holodeck somewhere and is like, yeah, yep, I am. I am one of the creator beings behind this whole thing. This is really who I'm feeling called to work with, to activate you into that remembering, to activate the I don't want to say return of your latent psychic gifts, but just like the activation of your latent psychic gifts, to activate your memories of who you are and what your role is and what you're supposed to do, all while we like straddle the hilarious dichotomy of also being embodied as humans and having to navigate this 3D world and still do the 3D things. So the call is about channeling the light and like literally being like a wide open channel to receive a monumental rush of light through your being that you then radiate out into the world. 1212 is about the embodiment of the Christ light frequency. And really what I mean by that is like the highest level of consciousness that we can embody as humans. So becoming avatars of the Christ consciousness frequency, but you can supplant it. You can just say the divine frequency. You can just say like the like ascended like frequency of the holographic central sun. I don't know, call it whatever you want, but it is the embodiment of that. It's the ability to be in a simulation and see that this is a simulation and start decoding it and remembering like, oh yeah, I understand this is how this works. I understand this is how that works, so that you can then affect the simulation and recode it from the inside out. I was just with my beautiful friend Michelle yesterday, and she knows that one of her missions is to work with very influential people in the public eye whose consciousness, whose avatar has been hijacked by darker forces, and detach the darker forces and then help to heal the consciousness, the soul consciousness of those influential people so that they are radiating light codes to the public, not dark codes to the public, not corruption codes to the public. So, like, if you hear this and you're like, oh, that resonates with me, even if that's not that specific thing that I described isn't your mission, but you understand what I mean, that you are here as part of the bigger mission, then just message me. And I have a lot going on right now. Like, I have to go to my uncle's funeral, and it's William's birthday coming up, and, just life. So sometimes it takes me longer than I want it to get back to people, but just know that I will see your message and I will get back to you, and I will figure out like how we're supposed to work together. If you feel like you're supposed to work with me, message me and we will figure it out. If, I will help you figure out if it's one of those containers, like the call or 1212. I have a huge one starting in August. It is so big. And it's for those of us who like are ready to get locked, loaded, and moved. I had a humongous transmission come through a few weeks ago about what we're supposed to like how we're supposed to liberate consciousness, open up portals, move consciousness out. It's a big one. So I have that coming up. I have creation codes coming up, but I also I'm really feeling like I'm supposed to work with certain people one-to-one. I don't know who those people are. I don't know. It's very confusing to me. But when they come into my field, into my world, I'm like, oh, it's you. Yeah, I'm supposed to work with you. And, if you're just listening to me and you're like, yeah, it's time to go. I know I'm supposed to do this. I know I'm supposed to do something in this direction. And I feel like I'm supposed to work with Amy. Message me and we will figure it out. We'll figure out how that's supposed to look, which container is right for you, or if we're supposed to work together like privately, then we'll figure it out. Okay. I think that's it. I love you all. I think I'm feeling a light language transmission coming through before we wrap up. Okay. Que hintia iroa intua atoya isiro italawin ifiriwa to. Iki hura atro ifinoa arawinti ara. Ikurchi oni iriopti a. Iriopti ata alawati ipanarwinti ir. Ki arawati or. Ti or ti inawa or ar. Si unio ar ti inawate ar uit. Ifinuat inchiate alawenti sirio ki a. Intar. Ifinuate alawenti alawati o. Ifinto bi inarawate ar a. Isun. Iparwati I. Usanawa it. Ki ar I o. Ti into ar. Kor. Chi I inarawa ar a. Okay, my beautiful friends. I don't know who that was for, but I know I could feel it was for several of you. Thank you so much for being here with me. I love you more than I can say. I can't wait to hear your feedback. If you like, just let me know if this resonates with you at all. I love you so much. Have an amazing week, my friends.
Whether you are just starting out on your spiritual awakening journey or you're ready to dive deep into activating your psychic gifts, I have a complete store ready for you to learn all the things that you are looking for answers to. I have light codes to upgrade and calibrate your consciousness. I have a class on the first 13 dimensions, a class on dark entities, a class on the human ego from a multidimensional perspective, and powerful modules and bundles on psychic activation, with more classes and courses being added all the time. In fact, I just added 3 classes about the Christ light frequency and the holographic field that have been selling like wildfire, and I get a ton of messages from people who appreciate this content. I truly love to serve you all, and I do my best to translate all the downloads and transmissions I receive from the Akashic Records into this library of information for you. You can find it all at amybelair.com/store. Enjoy. Thank you so much for being here with me on this episode. I appreciate you more than my words could ever say. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, and share, and I will catch you on the next episode.